Kind of games you playing this morning there, Darryl?
This
Hey,
thing on? Is this thing on?
what is happening?
Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? TK, I can hear you mouthing the words.
Damn my noisy lips.
You are a rascal. Look at you, all dressed up for work again on a Sunday. No
What's up,
church?
man? I got a baptism actually. Then I got work afterwards.
No way. I was
Yeah.
baptized once.
Nice. Heard that water was never used again.
I had the Jewish baptism. Those are
They're
fun.
like that water cannot be touching the skin of another baby. Brainstorm.
Brainstorm. Look at that. Two brains come together and we may have figured something out. But anyways, let's try and figure out the Toronto real estate market while we have some time to speak, just you and I, because I feel like that never happens anymore. And I miss my friend TK on a one-to-one level.
You set us on a wild goose chase there yesterday. Down the VR world.
Yes. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
How did
How
you
come,
enjoy
I want to
your-
know all those times that you and I were talking about the VR room for your new place, how come you never said once like, hey TK, you should get a VR? I always thought I just wasn't in the club.
I remember you being one of very few people that were able to try out my VR demonstration.
Yeah, the freaking 300-pound setup from Russia that was built during the Cold War.
Hey, look, you start a spark however you can start a spark, right? This is what we
Yeah.
had at the time. This
Yeah.
is only 2 years ago. We
Yeah.
went
Was it
from
2 years ago? Probably.
maybe a little more.
Probably, yeah, just 2019, I'd say. Yeah, you're right. 2 years.
I got rid of that space right before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But at the time, it was like this. It was like, look, if you spend like a few grand on this equipment, go and rent a warehouse, then you can have this amazing VR experience.
then it's like the coolest thing ever. Well, do you think this? Okay, so this is akin to the real estate market here in Toronto. If I knew that 2 years down the road, all I would need to spend is $1,000 to be able to have the same experience that I just spent 50 grand for, what would I have done? But there are no crystal balls in VR or in real estate. And that's why we are going to dig deep into the past of the city, hopefully. Today?
Maybe not. Maybe we're getting stood up today.
No, he's in the waiting room. I'm just about to let him in.
Oh, well,
So-
let's do it.
Without further ado, we have the infamous, you may have heard of him, you may not have heard of him, but
But now
he
you'll know
is
who he is.
fascinating, Mr. B. So let him in. I don't think I timed that very well.
That's okay.
I'll put some music
Now you
in,
got to know. Yeah, now you got to know.
and,
There's
and we
a
can
little
have
bit
like
of a little bit of a delay.
a lot of a delay. There he is. We can see you.
Hello.
There, and now
Hey-
we can
hey,
hear
Matt.
you. Perfect.
Welcome. Thanks. Thanks for joining us today.
Good
Yeah.
morning.
We made it with extra hour of sleep this morning, huh?
I was happy about that when I realized at like 8 p.m. last night that's what was going on.
I woke up and it was light out, and I was like, "Where am I? This is so strange."
I hate daylight savings.
They say there's an increased amount
daylight
of
saving.
yeah. They say there's an increased amount of car accidents during daylight savings.
Really?
Not sure what leads to that. Yeah.
Well,
I wonder what
it's
else
like-
goes on during daylight savings.
But it's like taking the entire nation and giving them a hangover for a day,
Yeah.
right?
And
I mean,
it's
I-
worse spring.
Yeah, it's worse in the spring, I think.
Yeah.
When you
I
I think
don't
it's
think
just
I
mass
notice a
confusion in the fall.
difference. Do you notice a difference, really, though? Like feeling? Don't you just wake up at the same time, like for your body, and then you go to bed when you're tired?
Pretty much.
I don't notice a difference, but maybe there is some research on that. I don't know.
So Matt, we're already live into the show. So we started it all. So we're good to go.
Okay.
Don't worry. We're pretty laid back around here. I saw your video on US versus Canada. That's what kind of brought me to your channel. You're like a seasoned veteran YouTuber. You know, you've been doing this a long time. I think maybe I would classify you like, I don't know, historian, general interest. Like what is your category that you put yourself in? Because you seem to have a really vast knowledge on the history of, and I was telling Darryl, you know more about the history of Toronto than we do. So
I watched his video about Toronto this morning and I was like, I didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I researched all that stuff before I made the video. It's not like I knew it beforehand, but I do have lots of Canadian friends, and I'm always making Canadian related videos. So I teach social studies to high schoolers. Actually, I did for the last 12 years, I should say. I just recently quit doing that, and I'm doing the videos now full time.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
2021.
Yeah, so it's been a weird adjustment here this year, but I still teach social studies on YouTube. That's basic, because like my specialty is American history, especially political history.
Yeah.
But I branch out, like I'll randomly make a video about Japan, or like I have a video coming up comparing Belgium and the Netherlands. So I'm excited about that one because I have a couple friends that are from those countries and they're going to help me. So that's usually what I do, by the way. That US and Canada compared video, I had several Canadians look over the script just to make sure, because I was like, I always get heat in the comments, like.
Yeah, there's two sides to every story.
Canadians, like Canadians are just like, you got that wrong. Who cares?
We're gonna find out today, Darryl. I think that's the direction we're gonna go in the show. We're gonna find out how different really are we compared to our neighbors to the south. Something's telling me not that much.
Yeah.
And the Toronto versus Montreal video too. You had something
that was
Toronto
great.
versus Montreal, which again, they don't even teach us that in school, or maybe I just never got to that level of education.
But living in Toronto though, did you ever think that at any point in time Montreal was like an equal to Toronto, or even ahead of? Like,
yeah,
no. And you know what I realized just while watching that video? I have a deep disdain for Quebecers, and I don't even know why. It's like ingrained into me, just living in Toronto my whole life.
Now that's what it is. Yeah. So
that's the biggest thing that makes Canada different, I think, is Quebec, like or Quebec. Sorry,
Quebec,
Quebec.
Quebec.
I always see, like I've found over the years that my French pronunciations are just atrocious, and so I that's another thing I get heat for a lot.
That's okay. The way, so like Toronto's basically just like, and like, I don't know how many major cities there are in the United States, but we're just another one of them. Toronto really is just another US major city. And the difference is you go to Quebec, it's like, okay, it kind of looks the same, or Montreal specifically, it looks the same, but then you start hearing everybody talk French and you go, okay, this is something different.
Where the hell am I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why am I so angry all the time now? I went to French immersion public school, so just hearing that accent makes me a little bit irritated and pretty angry. I did not enjoy going to French school while everybody else got to speak English. Although, when I practice, my French is fairly decent. I have not used French in 20 years, though. More. How old am I? 30 years.
Well, I got a surprise for both of you. We're going to do this entire podcast in French today. So from beginning to end. Okay.
You're
so
need a
it's
lot
be a
of
very
Google.
short podcast.
So have you ever been to Toronto? Toronto. That's how we really say it. I said it Toronto for you.
Embarrassingly, no, I have not been to Toronto or Toronto. I have been to Quebec. I've been to the Maritimes, Alberta, actually almost everywhere except for Ontario. So
why are you specifically avoiding coming here?
Wow.
Because it's just like the United States, right?
True.
No, that
Good
makes
point.
sense.
Actually,
Like,
Yeah.
most of my
New
Canadian
York's way
friends
better.
are, yeah, like I have friends in the Toronto area, and then like other friends that are in London, so even closer to the border, I think. And the rest of them, I guess, are in British Columbia. So, which is also Alberta and British Columbia, I feel, are much closer to the United States as well, compared to like when I was in Manitoba. We stayed at a hostel when we were up there, and they were all speaking French there. This was in Winnipeg, and I'm like, that kind of threw me off, but it did feel culturally a little bit different there. So,
and so when you were in Winnipeg and you looked out the window, were you able to see a moose?
pretty much, like, I can't believe people live in Winnipeg. I mean, we were there in July, which is fine. It's beautiful in July, but there's no air conditioners, and I'm like, where's the air conditioners? Like, well, we really don't need them. It's like because it's only like maybe a week out of the year. I don't know.
Unbelievable.
Brutal weather.
Nobody goes to I've never been to Winnipeg. Never plan on going to Winnipeg.
Really?
It's not an exciting place. No. It's like the
you
armpit
elitists in
of the
Toronto.
prairies.
You think you're
That's
better
right.
than the rest of the country.
We
That's
are.
right.
We are. Like,
We
it's-
definitely are.
according to the video, Toronto versus Montreal, we are. So, so I know that you're doing a lot of good videos. We should maybe take a time right now just to hear a word from our sponsors. If that's okay, Darryl?
Sure. Who are our sponsors?
We don't have any sponsors.
Well, let's say Mr. Beat sponsor.
Hey, Mr. Beat
today.
sponsoring today. Hey, thanks,
Check out his
Mr. Beat.
YouTube video.
Check out his YouTube
Mr.
channels.
Beat.
Yeah.
So hold on a
I'm
sec.
paying them each thousands of dollars to have me.
Now, where does Mr. Beat come from? Is it like, are you just stealing traffic from people that didn't spell Mr. Beast properly?
Seems like his last name.
That's been a blessing and a curse, actually. Like, it's a double-edged sword because I started my channel before Mr. Beast. I've been around, like you said, I'm a veteran. I've been making these videos since 2011 regularly.
Holy.
Most of those years nobody watched, but except for my students in real life. But then he comes around like a few years later, and I'm just like, well, who is this guy? And then he blows up. But that, sometimes people do accidentally type in Mr. Beat when they're searching for him, and then they're like, oh, well, Mr. Beat's not bad. I think I'll check out some of his videos. So I can't complain too much, even though I am a little, like, come on, man, you could have chose a different name. This is my real legal name. My legal name is Matt Beat.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, that's a lucky coincidence.
Your channel's got lots of views on things that are not the same topics as Mr. Beast. I think you're doing something unique enough that people are interested. I don't think it has anything to. Your success has nothing to do with his success. I think you've got your own thing going.
What's amazing is that like the topics are also different, and you get tons of views on all of them. It's an interesting style. You have like a humor that's not like forced. Like, it's not supposed to be comedy, but I feel like you're being funny also.
I was being myself, I guess. Yeah,
we're working on that. We're working on that.
No, you've already made me laugh several times. So
we're at the Toronto Real Estate Show. I mean, we talk about so many different things, right? But we try to always keep the focus on, like, how can our listeners who are mainly in the GTA, Greater Toronto area, who are, interested in real estate stuff, but they want to know what else is going on out there. Since the pandemic, how have things been happening? I think you're in Massachusetts,
Kansas,
correct?
Kansas, yeah,
Kansas, right?
Right in the middle.
U.S. geography, we're just as bad as Americans are at Canadian geography. But in Kansas, what's been going on since the start of the what in 2020?
You mean like with
real estate? With people moving, with people doing stuff?
I follow this stuff all the time. Like, I just do this for fun. So there's a lot of overlap because I don't know if you know other channels like The World According to Briggs, and then there's this guy named Nick Johnson. But what they do is, like, they look at the statistics, like why places are desirable places to live, and I think a lot of times, there's the cliche, the grass is always greener on the other side, but sometimes it actually is. And a lot of times we grow up in a place, like, I'm not sure if you two are originally from that area, but like, I've spent most of my life in Kansas, and when I research these different places, I'm, sure, I appreciate my home, but at the same time, I'm just like, man, it seems like other parts of the world are more advanced, and
In
it becomes
Kansas?
yeah, like I'm like, why am I here? Like, I mean,
Think?
Toronto is actually an example of that. Like, it's I don't know if you realize it, but it's a highly desirable place to live, and you look at some American cities. Like, I did a video comparing Detroit and Cleveland, and it was frankly depressing. I
Ouch.
mean, the pandemic has not made anything work. Well, some areas have tried to take advantage of that, but generally, like, it's been a rough time, and I've excluded a lot of that data from the last year and a half, because it is an anomaly. It's like things are getting better, and then also, like, I do bring up cost of living a lot in my videos, because this is another huge thing. Like, if you spent your whole life in, say, California, it's a wonderful place, but it's a very expensive place. And so, like, if you could have a much higher standard of living somewhere else, like, why not go for that? Especially when you see how many people are working from home these days remotely. It's a no brainer.
Are people moving to Kansas? Is that what you're seeing? Are people moving out of
No,
Kansas? What?
absolutely not Kansas. They're moving to places like Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, like,
Texas.
even
Everybody's
like,
moving to Texas and
well,
Florida, no?
yeah,
Seems like
Texas
Texas, yeah.
and a lot of people say it's the tax breaks, but I think it's a little bit more than that. Like, but I think, with Texas in particular, I think Elon Musk gave a lot of attention. I have another video comparing California and Texas, and I think it did well partially because of Elon Musk saying, hey, we're going to move our headquarters of Tesla from California to Texas and all this. And, they seem to be at odds with each other, like diametrically opposed, but they're really not. And like, in many ways, I found it, Texas isn't like this libertarian state like people want to believe. Like, the government gets all up in your business on many things. Plus, think about it, marijuana is illegal in Texas. So when Joe Rogan, I don't know if you followed Joe Rogan at all, like,
Oh yeah.
he also made a big deal about he moved from California to Texas during the pandemic, and he's like, he regularly consumes marijuana.
Advocate, yeah.
California, it's completely legal. In Texas, it's completely illegal. So I wasn't sure if he was thinking that through. It's supposed to be all about freedom in Texas, but no, not always.
Right.
I think he's making do, I think he's got that little under the table
Yeah, he's still consuming. Yeah.
Yeah. Botany class. Now, so last year, so 2020, right? Like, we had a lot of shutdowns, we had things happening. We basically thought the world was going to end the first couple months, and then right afterwards, the Toronto real estate market exploded, and people have had an insatiable demand for housing since then. Is that what you're seeing as well in Kansas?
Yeah, even Kansas, we've been affected by that. If you within states, if you go to certain cities, you'll find still some great deals because nobody wants to live there. Like, I live in a city called Lawrence, which is just west of Kansas City. And if you go a little bit further west, you'll go to a city that's the capital of Kansas called Topeka, which is where I was born, and I still have family there. It's not a very desirable place to live, though. You can actually, prices have not gone up there much. And so they are paying people to move there in Topeka, which is kind of cool, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you work remotely. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. And there's great parts of that city, but it does have a bad rap still, like, especially because, like, 20 years ago, the violent crime rate was pretty high there. But I guess, like, the moral of maybe that's what the direction we're going with this episode is, like, hey, don't worry about the inflated real estate market, because there's still great deals if you're willing to kind of, like, live where most people don't want to live.
Move to Topeka.
And it's not really that dangerous. It really isn't.
We honestly, Matt, there is not a single place in Canada that you can go right now that has not been inflated to the stars. It is
Really
insane. Every single little town, every single little, like, minor town that's 15 hours north, that you got to take 3 planes just to get there. Everything is gone up. It's so crazy. The Canadian real estate market is at a point where it just seems so overvalued. And I have a lot of investor people that I deal with, and everybody has been saying the same thing over the last 6 months, maybe 12 months. The more experienced guys 12, but the less experienced guys 6 months, is you can't get the same deals in Canada that you can in the States. And if people they're setting up LLCs and getting things organized for themselves to be able to work down in the States, and it's like they're finding cash flowing deals, they're finding properties that are undervalued, they're finding ways to implement the strategy that used to work for them here in the States, and they're making money. Whereas in Canada, it's just basically what happened is everybody from Toronto couldn't get the values that they wanted. And because our values are so much higher, they took their money from Ontario and brought it elsewhere and jacked up the prices for the locals and all these other small towns
there's a lot of
across Canada.
Foreign investment in British Columbia, I know.
Did you see that video that just came out? That's a great segue into this. This is one of the things I was hoping we'd talk about. So there was a video that just came out, and Better Dwellings was talking about, which is like, I guess, a newspaper or an online newspaper here in Toronto. They put out articles every couple of days, every day, twice a day. I don't know. Anyway, so they put out a video that's talking about all of the corruption in Vancouver and all of the illegal like money coming into the country. And like it dates back a long way. It's pretty amazing. So they had something that they called the Vancouver method, or what, I forget the name, the way that it was, but it had Vancouver in it, and it was a way of basically bringing money in from overseas illegally through like drug rings and underground banks and like casinos.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody in China, for example, because they have a limit on bringing $50,000 a year into the country, will put money into an underground bank in China. It will end up being in a bag of cash in Vancouver that gets put into the casino, laundered, comes back out as cash, and goes into real estate.
Yeah.
And so what they're saying is that that's spread across Canada. And that's one of the real major factors that's really pushing this market here, because it's crazy. I mean, I don't know if either of you noticed on the screen before what I had up, but if you take a look right now at, I mean, this is Topeka. I don't know if you notice a difference between Topeka and Toronto.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Density.
Right? But I mean, I got to think Topeka's been around quite a while. I mean, I don't think there's water. Is there water there? I mean,
they got a lake.
It's the 1850s is when it was founded.
It's like in the middle of the country, though. So like, it's not a good place. Like, there's no port, right? You don't have a port anywhere near Kansas, do you?
I mean, yeah, the river is not that notable. The Kansas River isn't really known for shipping.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know if Kansas is going to be one of those places people migrate to unless they really want like nice peace and quiet, cheap real estate for sure. But like,
my point was, though, that, you know, so many people are transporting stuff online. And I'm wondering if maybe the reason why the bubble is a little bit bigger in Canada is because maybe, like, how's your broadband network up there?
Killer.
It's getting better, but it's heavily focused in the major cities.
Sure.
Yeah, because I mean,
we're on the Starlink beta.
Starlink's our savior for places.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, it's embarrassing. There's parts of rural United States that it is still fairly slow internet, and it's not ideal for like Zoom calls like we're doing right now, you know? So like, but once you figure that out, this is like what so many people can do the work at home. I just don't like, why you think it's
undervalued? You think Kansas is undervalued? That's an opportunity for somebody who could work from home to go in there and take advantage.
Yeah, parts of it. Anywhere near Kansas City, no.
What about the diversity though?
Oh yeah, it's not very diverse. That's another thing, and the amenities is big too. Like, you know, like there are interstate highway stretches in Kansas that have potholes we're supposed to be the richest country in the world. And, well, this infrastructure bill just passed like a couple days ago, actually. And that's the reason why, like our infrastructure is starting to fall behind. And actually certain states, like in the Northeast, you don't see this problem. Like you go up to Connecticut or Massachusetts, their infrastructure is much more advanced. And that's another thing a lot of Americans don't realize. It's like, how far are your tax dollars going? And people complain about like, oh, New York, they tax so much. But then at the same time, their teachers are well paid. Their roads are well paved. The broadband networks there are much superior to, like, say, a place like Arkansas. So like I get it why you still want to choose certain states to live for not only that you mentioned the diversity, the the culture, but also the amenities.
Yeah, you just have to look at who's moving around, right? Like where do they feel comfortable? Where do they want to go, right? So diversity is like huge in Toronto, which is why we attract so many people, right?
Yeah.
Again, let's go back to your Toronto versus Montreal video. Think about all the English speaking people who went to Montreal first and were like, you know what? I heard Toronto's pretty nice and they all speak English over there. And they went, because people are trying to find similarities and stuff. So if you go to a place like Kansas or Winnipeg or whatever, and you're not fitting in because you don't maybe have people who speak your language or look like you or eat like you or dress like you kind of feel like you're not at home, which is tough, right? And that's population growth. I think 101 is people feeling like they belong.
Well, plus melting pot, like you're seeing immigrants from other places and like, well, they came,
that's what it is. That's what Toronto is, and I know the States is like that. I know that's what, like I said, we have a very similar type of demographics in certain cities and certain places and all that kind of stuff. But you also have that middle America that's going to be harder to push people towards. We have, like, I guess, middle Canada too. Like even the whole prairies are like that. It's like
I've never been out that way in Canada, but I've talked on the show a few times about just how surprised I was driving, from Toronto to Florida on the highway, and just all these cities that I've heard about my entire life, like these major cities like Atlanta along the way. Like when you drive through the downtown, there's like 6 buildings and they're not very tall. And most of what you see from the I-95 is like camper towns and like rundown bungalow villages. And like, there doesn't seem to be that prosperity that you envision when, you're thinking or taught about the United States. Meanwhile, the country's like spread out all over the world with interests all over the place. But at home, it's like I felt like I drove by a lot of shanty towns to get to Florida.
That's interesting. I do think that a lot of those parts of this country feel neglected, which explains why politically we've become more populist in recent years on the right and the left. And I do think that's, there's still some very, I would say, futuristic parts of our country. Like if you go to Northern Virginia or Boston or San Francisco, San Jose, that looks like the future. Like it looks like any European city or Toronto. But yeah, you're like you said, like if you go to Jacksonville or if you go to, you mentioned Atlanta. Atlanta's on the up and up. They're getting better. But
this was 20 something years ago.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, if you go to Atlanta and like say Charlotte today, these southern cities actually are. There's some promising things there, like especially if they're downtown areas. But there's a lot of like Wichita's where I'm from originally. It's Wichita, Kansas. It's the largest city in Kansas, and that would meet the description that you just said. Like,
that's what's interesting is like we've heard of Kansas City and we've heard of Wichita and we've heard of Arkansas, and I guess we attach an idea to them. I guess we probably just see them in
Toronto
movies
as
farms, right?
Toronto people.
Yeah. Sure. Well, it's the same thing. Imagine you tell somebody from the United States that you're from Toronto and they ask you if you know Matt, right? Like they think it's this small little place where, everybody's friendly and knows each other.
6 million people.
Or it's like,
just
or it's like 90 degrees out and they're like, oh, is this, can you guys
is this
handle the heat
weird?
here?
Yeah. Do you
Like,
guys?
are you kidding me? Like July and August, the temperatures are like painful in Toronto,
Yeah.
So here,
and it gets cold, but it's
let's
still.
try and get back to some Toronto real estate, or at least tie it in. Like, do you have anything comparable to this in Kansas?
Yeah, we should talk about the prices in Toronto just to
Like, look
give you
at
some
this.
context.
387 square feet, which I don't even know why we talk in square feet, but I guess it makes it easier for this discussion. $768,000. Like, and look
Like-
at this crap hole.
That's like a
That's what you
loft.
get.
Yeah,
No, this is
studio
called a
apartment,
studio.
no
You buy-
bedroom, one room.
Oh my gosh.
$768,000 is what it costs. And
Oh
where's
my
where's the
gosh, look at
location?
right
197
downtown.
Young. So you're
Oh,
in
well, look
you're
at that
premium
view.
location. Yeah, you're in a
I like
premium
the view.
location. Yeah.
You like the
Uh,
view. You can fit
I mean,
four
yeah.
eggs in here. And when you are, furnished and your sofa is here, you have to move your sofa to open the oven.
Yeah, we just did a stat show, Matt, yesterday, actually, just for the month of October. The average detached home price is just under 1.8 million in Toronto. And the average price, including all condos, studios, everything, is 1,155,000 Canadian dollars.
Look at this. Look at this.
That's the average prices.
Wow.
Toronto Mansion is on sale for 16 million, but it's going to be a total teardown. This is just land.
It's a good spot. That's a good driveway right there. Hey,
This is
Yeah.
on Toronto's most prestigious street. This is where Drake lives.
now, Matt, we are not
Oh.
rich. Matt, we are not rich. Everybody
Uh.
just borrows. They just borrow the money that they need to be able to live the dream of owning a piece of Toronto real estate. $1 million mortgages are like common. This is like in the last couple of years, if you had to buy a house, you need to get $1 million mortgage. That's what it
Yeah.
is here, right?
It's everywhere, honestly. I do see places in the United States like this. Like, I mean, obviously the Bay Area, San Francisco has been like this for a long time.
Yeah.
Along the entire way, even a city like Portland, Oregon, you see this type of stuff. But I guess my question to you two are like, do you see this having much of an impact on, because Toronto is still a very desirable city to move to for Canadians and like immigrants. Do you think that this will change that? Or do you think that immigrants maybe will head to Alberta or something? I don't know.
Somewhat.
Some
Somebody
will.
out there is making a decision based on, can I afford to live there? Right?
Mhm.
Like everyone would love to live in San Francisco, but people are like, it's too expensive, so I'm not going to go. So think about how many people would say, I want to live in Toronto, but they're going to say, you know what? Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec City, Calgary. These are all lesser
But
cities,
this
in
is
my opinion.
all, yeah, this is all
Smaller cost
like,
of living.
but this is this is like when you can't get choice A, I will settle for one of
Yes.
these until I
Mhm.
can get back to A. Because for some reason, like, our government, okay, so to answer your question, it's going to get worse here. Like prices are going to get higher and probably pretty quickly. Our government is on their goal is to bring in 400,000 new people into the country each year for the next 2 years.
Which is
Mhm.
1% of our population. So it would be the same as the States bringing in 4 million people every year.
So, but just to give you context, about, let's say somewhere in the 20 to 30% range end up in Toronto. Okay. And currently, Toronto has 124 cranes in the sky building, high rise, mid rise projects.
Mhm.
Actually, we use cranes now to build townhouse projects because they're just so big, the townhouse projects. So we have 400,000 potential new people, of which 20% are going to come to Toronto. We have a huge housing supply crisis, we call it here. We cannot get enough on the market at all, ever. We have tightening restrictions from the government. We have increased fees from the government, like new policies in the last month that just, like, everything here is trying to slow it down by making it harder to develop. But what it does is it's constricting and restricting the new supply, which is just driving
Mhm.
prices up like crazy. And then you have, I think, a bunch of people going like, holy shit, the thing just went up so much. I don't know where the hell I'm going to be able to afford to move to unless I go to Alberta, right? Because I'm going to have to
Mhm.
go buy like a 387 square foot condo for the price I just sold my house for.
Well, the cost of living, I did mention in my Montreal and Toronto video, and Montreal is quite a bit cheaper to than Toronto. So I wonder if that's one of the because it's not that far away, and yeah, if you can get over the language differences, I think it is fairly comparable. Like it's an economic hub. It's like I wonder if that's one of the places I'll go to instead, and maybe it will become more. I don't know what the restrictions are there compared to Toronto, like as far as economic development, but
No, I think you just have to be able to tolerate
Yeah,
the
I think
French.
it's comparable. It's not something that anybody your lifestyle and everything else is not going to be severely impacted if you move to Montreal. Like it's a nice place to be, right? Great culture, great food, education. It really just is the language that some people are, scared of. It's not like it's impossible, but the CEO of Air Canada, okay, our largest airline that's got government backing, right? It just had a big press conference this week, and everybody's mad at the CEO because he doesn't speak French and he's lived in Montreal for the last 14 years. Right. So it's on the news, it's on the radio. The Quebecers are like, how come you don't speak the French? And, he's just like, look, I've lived in Montreal. I'm a busy guy. I haven't, needed to speak French. And so if you saw my schedule, you would understand. I don't have time to learn French. We're running the company. That's my job. And of course,
They're
I'm
asking
trying
him
to
all of this in English, by the way.
do the
This is
best
in
I
all the
can.
English newspapers.
I say like most people there do speak English, even if it's a second language. So like I don't
Yeah.
understand the controversy.
But it's just the way that the
It's a
French culture is, right?
deeply ingrained like
He knows the history.
disdain.
Yeah, he knows
Yeah.
the history.
I
It's like,
understand like
Upper
the
Canada, Lower Canada was a big deal back then, right?
yeah, and they're afraid, as most people are, of losing their culture. Like I can see a rise of nativism in both the United States and Canada right now, because you were mentioning how many immigrants are coming. My opinion is we should have more immigrants because frankly people are not having enough babies down here, and so like our economy will struggle if we don't bring in the immigrants. You look at the past 50 years, immigrants, or at least second generation, their sons and daughters, have led the economic growth. And like so there's a good case. Like a big reason why Canada's future economic growth is promising is because they're like saying, yeah, come on, bring them in. And Canada kind of maybe needs to do that because their climate isn't necessarily like the most desirable. Like, so
yeah.
I get it.
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg's
Yeah.
climate.
Even here in Toronto, it's horrible. I don't even understand why we live in this crazy, horrible weather. I'm already ready
What do
to
you
leave.
mean? We have all
Like,
the seasons. We get the nice summers. We got fall
yes, it
weather right
looks
now is so beautiful.
It looks
Winter
beautiful
time,
on
it's really
YouTube
mild.
too. It looks beautiful in images as well.
Yeah.
I can't stand this weather.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
So we're pro immigration too. Immigration solves a lot of problems. That's
We
something that
figured it out here in Canada. Like the immigration, what we said it a few weeks ago. Canada, our major industry is warehousing human beings. We build warehouses to store them in, and it drives the economy like crazy,
Yeah.
right? We give them health
everything else falls in
care.
line.
We
Everything
let
else
them
falls in
live
line.
longer. We're nice
We
to
got lots of
people up
space.
here. I
We
think
got
we
room.
actually have it
Come on
figured out.
in.
Everybody thinks we're going off like this debt cliff and we're going into oblivion, but like we could literally stop selling stuff to everybody and be the most self-sufficient country on the planet. Like we literally have everything here. We don't have to, send all of our oil to you guys, have you refine it and sell it back to us at twice the price. Like that's kind of dumb, right? Like somebody one day in Canada is going to wake up and say, hey, why are we sending Elon all of our nickel and cobalt? Like, why don't we make cars here? The patents are all open, right? Like we could
Well, I
literally
mean,
start Tesla here, mine our own shit and turn off the oil and we'd be like a superpower. We'd fuck everybody up.
you're right. Canada could be the most self-sufficient, mostly, yeah, the natural resources alone. But I also think that you know, my students used to ask me this all the time, like, why do we export oil and import oil? Doesn't make any sense, but like, it's very complex. It's basically like, you can't think of it as like the entire country doing that. It's individuals that are doing that. And so collectively, when it all adds up, they're all saving money. And that's ultimately what it is. Like, it's the reason why when I bought a shirt yesterday and it was $20 versus being $100, and it was because it was made in Vietnam. And so
well, I'm a free
trade guy.
But we're paying $20 for these crappy t-shirts, but like kids are dying. We don't add that to the cost, right? Like,
that's a good point. Yeah, that's another debate for sure. Yeah, like the labor,
the whole thing is just
horrible,
crazy. The whole thing is nuts. And now
the only time that's going to happen, Darryl, the only time that Canada is ever going to have to get out of trade is if something happens where we're no longer trading as close to the US dollar as we have, and we have hyperinflation and Canada's dollar runs wild. And so now we can't buy anything with it, and we have to sort of shut things down and grow internally, which I don't think is ever going to happen. That's going to be something we always, the Fed raises their interest rates. Okay, let's raise our interest rates. You know, the US imposes some sort of border restriction. Oh, let's do these border restrictions. You know, everything that the US does, we are US junior. I mean, that's just, it's the reality of it, and we're led by that. So we're always going to be tied to. So when the US fails, we go down with them. When they're successful, we're just underneath them, but we're riding that coattail to be able to, you know, experience the joys that they are. Unless that changes, Darryl, nothing will ever go that far apart between us and them.
Okay, hold on a sec. So here in
Canada, I thought what Matt was going to say was his students were asking, how come Canada's not a part of the United States?
Yeah, why didn't we invade those?
I thought that's what you were going to say.
So too.
That's an American student question right there.
Why have we not invaded them? At least
right? Why is that not a state? Why is
it's
that
because of Quebec.
I heard they're this big.
Quebec. It's definitely because of Quebec.
They don't want us.
If we didn't have Quebec, they would accept us with open arms. But hold on a sec. Like, let's take recent events, okay, with labor shortages, people that aren't going back to work because of whatever reason. If you take a small amount of, it's not even a small amount, but let's say if you take 5-10% of the people willing to work in an industry away, it destroys the industry. Look at what's going on right now.
Yeah.
How is McDonald's going to compete with $25 an hour just to retain people for 2 weeks because they're just disappearing, or they're buying Shiba Inu and they're a billionaire next week, right? Like how so other than robotics and automation, how in the world is like the economy going to get back to any semblance of what it was before? Now, hold on, using that same logic, if we turned off the spigots here in Canada and we stopped, like, we're one of the biggest trading partners of the United States. If we say, you know what, we don't need you anymore, we can be self-sufficient, or we found a better partner, we cut it off, we could destroy their economy. Destroyed. If we stop the oil, the United States is done. If we stop
it's
half
a double-edged sword, though.
Of course it is. But look, you have India, okay, 1.5 billion people coming online. You have China, 1.6 people coming online. Even though they're all fucked up right now, they're going to figure it out again. Russia, like, you have these, Brazil, you have these huge Nigeria, like these huge populations of people coming online that need all this stuff that we have. We are no longer necessarily, we don't necessarily need to be tied to the United States anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're a separatist, Darryl. You're a separatist.
Not a separatist. I'm a realist. Something is changing. The world is changing so much and so fast right now that, like, it doesn't even matter where you are. You can make more money than ever before. I'll bet you some of your students are making more than all three of us put together because they have a great YouTube channel, or they figured out Shopify 5 years ago, or bought Bitcoin by accident in some video game, right? Like
it's changing.
The world
the landscape
is so
of income and employment and everything like that is definitely changing. So back
and
to
now
the immigration,
what's even more
who's
important
McDonald's going to hire?
No, but the employee has become more important than the employer. Like,
that's good.
That's crazy good. That's such a crazy change. Like, imagine the ripple effect of just that one little thing.
I know, it's fantastic. What we're seeing now is, Like even in my hometown, you're seeing like fast food workers getting paid a living wage for the first time, like meaning not a minimum wage, because minimum wage is still here is like embarrassingly low, but like a wage where they can actually, you know, meet their basic necessities and actually work full time at a fast food restaurant. Like this was unheard of until really this year. So
We
they're
just
getting
had ours
leverage.
raised to $15 an hour, and it comes up in January.
Which
Really.
is the
Canadian.
equivalent of what, like $13 US, 12 something?
Something
Yeah,
like
11 or
that.
whatever. Yeah.
What's minimum wage there?
Living wage though in Toronto is 20 something dollars an hour, right? So that's the province of
Yeah.
Ontario. That's 15. I would say that would be a living wage in less than 10% of the cities in Ontario.
Isn't it
So
crazy that there's a distinction between minimum wage and living wage?
There
And that
is.
the minimum wage
Don't try to live
doesn't-
off that wage there, sir. Don't think you're going to work here and live. All right. We just want you to be at the minimum. Okay.
The
You need other
living-
sources of income to live.
the
Don't
minimum
live too much.
wage doesn't
Yeah.
even meet the living wage.
I'm kind of radical because I think that instead of having a minimum wage, you should just have universal basic income, which Canada has.
We kind of
talk
have
about
it
that.
here. You guys kind of have it there
Piloted-
too.
We
right
piloted
now.
it. We piloted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, certain parts, like certain cities, are doing it.
In the Maritimes, they had some like really moderate success. It wasn't anything that anybody was really too happy with, but yeah, I 100% agree. And with this, so quickly, the stimulus that you guys had, which was PPP, right? The PPP loans.
Yeah.
right?
Well, that
This
was small business or
Small business.
all businesses. We have quote small businesses, but large businesses got a lot of that money.
Okay.
They
And then you
divided
guys
into
also
it.
had some sort of stimulus check. Like there was like 1 or 2 stimulus checks that were all very like,
Well, yeah, there was. In fact,
Unreasonable, no?
we are still getting stimulus checks for. I have 2 kids, and so it's amazing. Like we have essentially it is a form of universal basic income.
yeah.
if
So
you're-
we
if you
had
have
something
kids.
similar. Yeah. So we had something
You did.
similar. It was called CERB. And for the past 18 plus months, many people were getting about $2,000 a month. They've winded it down now, and really it's
Mhm.
done. So now it's really going to be unemployment income if you qualify, and that's it, right? So that was a huge amount of money, and it was almost like a test, the first universal basic income test to see
Yeah.
how people would they still go to work, would employers be able to fill jobs, and our job vacancy rose, and people are
But it's for
scared
the
because
crappy
they can't
jobs.
fill.
It's the crappy. I'm telling
It's
you,
the Amazons.
people
the-
want to work. Like this is a myth to think that people, like if they were given money, they would just sit on the couch and watch Netflix all day. No, that's not what makes us happy. We are happy because we want to have a purpose in a community. Like that's what drives all of us. I mean, unless we have some kind of severe mental illness that makes us so we don't want to do anything. I mean, depression is real. Like other than that, we want to work. And so this is a myth. And so I think it's ridiculous just to tie whether or not we get to buy basic necessities to our employer is ridiculous to me. And I think it's better. Now the fear of universal basic income, of course, is inflation. And you could argue that part of the reason why we've seen real estate and everything go up, in addition to worker shortage, is people have extra cash now. They have money just sitting around like, oh, I want to spend it, you know?
So the data right now is inconclusive, right? Because everything is
Mhm.
anecdotal. We're seeing everyone's hiring, all the restaurants. I'm seeing advertised. There's radio ads. We're hiring. That's never happened before, right? Because they're short. You're right. They are the lowest income, the lowest paid, the less desirable jobs for sure. But that data is going to have to take its time before it comes out, before they can
Yeah.
actually concretely say, we know that we just need to fill these roles in other ways, immigration, automation, robotics, that kind of stuff. Or we need to find a way to raise minimum wage to living wage so that people want to go to these jobs so that it's worth it for them. Okay. But basically, because of the CERB that we had, the payments that everybody was getting, it's not helping the UBI come into effect. It's not helping. Not yet.
And it's one of those things too, where like people know it's temporary. And so it will alter their behavior in the short term, but long term, they know they have to go back to work.
And anecdotally,
Well,
even
but hold on.
trades, painters, electricians, guys who are having these laborers we're also saying the same things. Anecdotally, guys don't want to work right now because they're staying home and getting paid a little bit less than what they would normally, but it's all, for
They're
staying
staying
at home
home
playing
and they're
video
working
games.
though. They all have side hustles.
They're doing other jobs. Yeah.
I was gonna say,
They're doing
like,
other
that's
stuff.
the myth. Like, just because you don't want to go to the crappy fast food job doesn't mean you don't have, like, you're not, like you said, like, you're not a painter
You're
or
trading.
you
Yeah.
you build
Yeah.
tables, like, I don't know.
Yeah. Good
Yeah,
point. No, that's a good
and
point.
not reporting. I mean, imagine how much unreported income has gone on in the
Mhm.
past couple of years, right? So even the
Yeah.
statistics won't be accurate. Like, try figuring out all the people that just made millions in Dogecoin. Like, is that getting taxed? Is that getting reported anywhere?
They're trying.
Well, they feel
Well,
like they
they're
don't have
gonna
to go to
try.
work. So yeah.
But why would anybody go back to work in a restaurant knowing that there's the potential that you will be out of work again? Right? Why would you go back to one of these industries that was decimated by the pandemic that's still kind of in flux at the moment? Right?
Mhm.
And I mean, we can't be foolish and not think that all these corporations are working. Like, there's going to be a robotic McDonald's soon. Like,
Mhm.
there has to be, right? There is going to be a Domino's that is fully roboticized, if that's English, right? Automated, fully automated. Like, Tesla's factories making cars like this will spur a revolution in manufacturing like we have never seen, and digital printing and all this stuff, where it's like, I don't even know where all of this is going to go, but it's going to be crazy, and people won't be able to find jobs again soon. There will be such a shortage. There will be so much unemployment when cars are autonomous and trucks are autonomous and robots are doing all these warehouse jobs, and robots are making coffees. Like, have you seen barista robots are a big thing, and Flippy the
Yeah.
robot in what's it called? White Castle or Night Castle, the big chain out there. But like, soon you're going to drive through an In-N-Out burger and you're going to speak to an AI, or you're going to put it in your own order and you're going to go by and a robot will flip it in front of you and whip it into your window, and it'll be super cool. But like, I don't know how people are going to afford to buy the burger, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to be in stocks or real estate or
Well,
selling
you don't
stuff
have
to
to
people online.
you don't have to pay that robot, and you don't have to pay them, especially in benefits. I mean, they're saving millions of dollars, and so that hopefully will drive costs down for the consumer.
No, it'll drive costs down
Automation
for the company. Will it
for the
drive
company.
costs down?
Oh, I
for
see
the
what you're saying.
consumer,
Oh.
right?
Why not? Why not?
I don't
There's
know. Will they
deflationary
pass it
pressure
on?
from automation for sure. 100%.
Maybe, probably.
Yeah, they're gonna have to. The market will control that. It'll have to. I'm not gonna
But
go and
I wonder if
spend
the
$100 on a burger.
and the pandemic, I think, has maybe sped up that automation process, especially, like, I noticed there's a shortage of truck drivers, especially
80,000 in the States.
Yeah. And so, and of course,
Crazy.
they say that self-driving cars are going to be led by self-driving trucks. That's going to be what kind of first makes it more, I guess, socially acceptable, but also economically. And I think we're going to see some self-driving trucks on the road here very soon.
They're already
Yeah.
in California, right? Going between Tesla and SpaceX. Like, if you're on the highway there, you'll see autonomous trucks going back and forth, which is just unbelievable. But I mean, imagine, like, where are people going to work, and how are we going to afford things if there's no more jobs? I mean, I know I'm pushing out far into the future, but I think it's not as far as one would seem these days, right? Or one
The
would think.
definition of job changes. Look how much has changed in 18 months.
Mhm.
Imagine
Totally
how that's going to
different.
change. Matt just left his 12-year social study teaching job to be doing YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And not because
full-time.
he makes less doing this. It's not because he's making less money doing it.
It's a
There's
more
no way,
appealing
right?
employment
I
for
make
him,
more
right? So,
doing YouTube. It's
right?
kind of
So-
sad.
Sure.
look, like,
Amazing.
this is not something that you or any of us would have said, 5 years ago. Maybe Matt had that dream or something, but that would have been probably a far-fetched dream at the time. And now
Imagine-
it's almost like, yeah, of course you did. You got YouTube. We have, 500 views and a bunch on podcast channels and stuff like that a week. And people are looking at us like, hey, you guys will be, getting out of real estate soon. Like, no, we're not making anything. $0 income.
You never
right?
know.
No, but what's
But-
crazy, like, my son, he's 15. He has a YouTube channel. He gets, he's got a few subs, nothing crazy, gets people watching him. But if he does this for the next 5 years, he will be able to make a living wage from it, guaranteed, because there's an audience for everybody. There's an audience for everything. If you're consistent, you will grow. If you make good content, you will grow. And you'll have like this whole generation of people just putting out content and making money for it. And then you have stuff like blockchains that are going to give people the ability to actually be in control of their content, right? We're going to have this whole revolution coming up now where if you make content, you're the one who's going to make money off of it, not YouTube. And you're not going to have to, whore yourself out to a billion ads that bother your customers, right? That they don't even want to watch. That I'm sure a lot of YouTubers are like, oh, I hate putting these on, but I mean, this is how I make my living now, right?
That's me.
Yeah. And so what you'll be able to do soon is take your following and put them into your own kind of like blockchain, right? And they'll be paying you to watch your content and they'll have some kind of interest in your growth. And that's just how it'll be a community run by you, I guess. And look, you already have 400,000 people that are part of your community, right? Like that's bigger than most cities.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
No, but it really is. It's bigger than most cities, right? That are waiting, every few days to hear what you have to say. It's pretty crazy.
Well, and I think what you said, like I just assume that, if I keep doing this for a while, that I'm going to have to depend on corporations. Like I sell my book through Amazon and YouTube, of course, is Google. But you're right. Like maybe if I can get to a point where we just get rid of that middleman, which is the corporation, it is possible, I guess.
Yeah, and that whole crypto space is got trillions of dollars in it right now, dedicated to making sure that this happens.
Wow.
To get away from centralization. That's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Real estate too. Real estate's going to get nutty in the next decade as it gets decentralized, and you no longer need a bank involved and you no longer need a lawyer involved because there's a contract that's already done that, like, if it doesn't meet all of this criteria, it doesn't get sold, right? And everybody.
Go ahead. Finish.
No, go.
Well, our biggest board, Toronto Real Estate Board. So this is the biggest real estate board in the world. Like we've got 65,000 members, and obviously the size of Toronto and everything like that, the volume of transactions we do, it's a really big market. It's a really big real estate board. So a lot of money. They are rolling out their new platform, which is using the blockchain, and all of our listings will be NFTs and everything that comes out next month. And by the end of 2022, they want us to all switch over. So everything is going to be, unique, and everything is going to be on the blockchain so that the data, because the data is so sensitive, they want to be able to control it, obviously, and they want to make sure that it can't be duplicated and reused, right? So a lot of anti-competitive things that real estate people are into, but that's what it is, right? They want to make sure that they've got that unique ability to put it out there into, obviously on the blockchain, into the public for advertising. So
that's surprising.
It's cool though. On one hand,
they're a step ahead. That's the leader in the world on that topic.
But this is the mind fuck with this whole thing, is that when the Toronto Real Estate Board does that, it becomes centralized, right? So now you've got this centralized business that is running all the information. That's what they want.
That's what they want.
And it will come across as super cool, and they will create some functionality that will be used by the real system in the future. That's decentralized.
Exactly. I 100% agree with you. Yeah.
The
bottom line is the technology.
It's scary now. It's scary now.
It can't stay centralized. There's no way that it can stay centralized. Something
they
like
try
that.
to. There's a lot of anti-competitive stuff with all real estate boards, right? Their data is what their value is, right? So they try to always protect it.
It's like the US dollar to them. Right? It's like they're the ones in control of the real estate market in Toronto. They want to control that data. The minute they lose control of the data, they are redundant.
Obsolete. Yeah.
Gone.
So, Darryl,
what did we talk about?
You were awesome. Matt, what a show today. All right. Really appreciate it.
I didn't think the conversation would go this way. That was a good conversation.
I had no idea what we were going to talk about.
So I told you, planning a conversation makes no sense because it never goes that way anyways. But, we really appreciate it. you know, anybody can find you on YouTube. Super simple, Mr. Beat. Subscribe. If you've got any, you know, bit of information or anything like that that you're looking to get on U.S. politics, on world, you know, comparison cities,
Geography. Yeah.
geography. You know, honestly, it is the most like comprehensive
FDA.
channel that I've ever subscribed to. They've just got so much information on there, and he does very thorough, professional videos, unlike the ones that we do. And check him out, Mr. Beat. He's on YouTube.
Mr.
Well,
B.
thank you for having me on.
Thanks,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Matt.
sir. What a great conversation.